Okay, so when the framers sat down to design the presidency, they kind of faced this genuine paradox, and that was they had just escaped the control of a tyrant, but they knew a republic can't survive without without any leadership. And so, what happens if you have too much executive power? Well, you get a monarchy. If you have too little, well, you get chaos, or you get drift, or just like a domination by the legislature. And so. For Federalist number 70 here, Hamilton's answer for that dilemma is the executive must be strong, but only because it is single and accountable and constitutionally restrained. He's not a king, it's not a council, it's not a committee, it's just one president. I'm Matt Haskell, I'm a high school history teacher, I also teach civics. Been doing this for almost 30 years, and we're talking about the Federalist Papers, all 85 of them, in order, and we're now to the 70s, and here we go with number 70. So let's kind of set the stage for this one. So the biggest fear of the anti-federalists was executive power. They had just escaped a monarchy and didn't want a new king in the clothing of a republic. But so some of these anti-federalists are proposing a multi-person executive, or like a rotating council, a committee of state governors, and then or a system of joint leadership. And Hamilton's like, yeah, absolutely not. But why? Well, he says that divided authority leads to things like hesitation or conflict or the passing of the buck. Secrecy could be a problem, or hidden responsibility. And then also just national weakness. And the framers weren't avoiding monarchy by weakening the executive. They were avoiding tyranny by limiting the executive, but they still wanted it to be strong enough to actually govern. And so Hamilton's core argument, his thesis in this, is that a single energetic executive is essential to the security, the stability, and the effectiveness of a small r Republican government. He writes, energy in the executive is necessary for protecting the community and enforcing laws, responding quickly to crises, conducting foreign affairs, resisting legislative overreach, and administering government effectively. The energy that he's talking about requires several things, like unity and decisiveness and speed, and finally accountability. And committees really do none of these things well. So why does all this matter? Because Hamilton is going to go on and argue that unity gives the executive speed because one person can act quickly, and consistency because you got a clear direction, not compromise that leads it's chaos, and then strength because clear authority, not just diluted power, and then finally a degree of visibility because everybody knows who's responsible. But a divided executive, in contrast, would be there's internal arguments and there's decisions that are stalled. Factions, things split into factions when you have committees. Then there's intrigue that develops in the group dynamic, and then the weakening of national authority. Unity prevents confusion and infighting and paralysis. Now, Hamilton makes his most famous argument about the accountability, because one person can be held accountable, a group cannot. So if one president abuses power, the nation knows exactly who to blame, right? And who to remove. Now, but if there's 3 or 4 that are sharing power, well, they blame each other. They hide behind the group. No one is clearly responsible. Corruption becomes easier, and the public loses the ability to judge. And Hamilton calls this a cloaking of guilt. And so a singular executive, they can't hide. Now, when it comes to things like the decision, the activity, the secrecy, the speed of the office. Well, Hamilton says that an executive must be able to act with, decision, activity, secrecy, speed, especially when it comes to foreign affairs, and then also military emergencies or national crises, and then finally the enforcement of the law, the duty of the executive branch. Right? They're there to enforce the law, and a divided executive cannot act with the necessary speed in order to get the job done. And so Hamilton's message is pretty simple. Committees deliberate, presidents act. So Hamilton believes that multi-person executives will inevitably form rivalries or gather together personal factions. They will divide along sectional or regional lines. They will expose secrets to build up their own clout. They'll undermine national unity. And he even goes back to cite like the tradition of the Roman Republic, where the Roman consulship. You had two executives who were constantly clashing, and that was the proof that a divided leadership leads to instability. And so America needed something better than that. Now, some anti-federalists, though, wanted the executive to be more or less like a puppet of Congress. And Hamilton's like, whoa, that'd be a disaster. Well, why? Well, because the legislature is prone to faction. It is slow and deliberative by design. It is too large to act quickly. It cannot oversee day-to-day execution of the law. And it would dominate a weak executive. And Hamilton argues that the executive's independence is essential for checking the ambition of the legislative branch. The president must be strong enough to say no. Now, Hamilton goes on to emphasize that unity does not equal tyranny because the president serves a 4-year term, can be impeached, can be removed, can be tried after leaving office, must stand for re-election, is limited by Congress, is checked by the courts, can't declare war unilaterally, cannot legislate, it can suggest, and he cannot suspend laws. We talked about this in number 69. A king has unity with absolute power. A president has unity with restricted power. Now, Hamilton's logic, if we tighten down the 5 points here, one is that energy in the executive is essential for effective government. Unity then creates energy. Multiple executives create conflict and then paralysis. Accountability requires just one individual, and then a single executive is strong but constitutionally limited. So there's number 70 in 5 steps. Now, his tone throughout the entire essay is that he's writing it with almost like a sense of urgency. 70 is quite urgent because he's not defending monarchy, he's defending functionality. His fear isn't the president's power, it's actually executive weakness. And a powerless executive invites the legislative tyranny and the foreign aggression, domestic disorder, administrative chaos. So Hamilton wants a president who can act, not a committee that can debate until the danger passes. So his moral conviction here is that liberty is best protected not by a weak executive, but instead by a strong executive who is clearly accountable for his actions. Strength plus accountability equals safety. Weakness plus confusion equals danger. Hey, we worked in some math to cross-curricular here with some social science. But anyway, an energetic executive serves the people, not by ruling over them, but by protecting them and enforcing their laws faithfully. Now, when it comes to number 70 in the modern sense, it's one of the most cited papers in modern politics because it underpins the debates about presidential power, the administrative state, executive orders, national emergencies, foreign policy authority, and crisis response. And Hamilton's argument still defines the modern presidency. Our takeaways are the United States needs a single energetic executive. The unity enables speed, decisiveness, and accountability, and a one-person presidency protects liberty better than a divided council ever could. Number 70 is Hamilton's masterpiece of executive design. He argues that a republic cannot survive with an executive afraid to act or too divided to lead. It's a single, energetic president that is not a threat to liberty, but he is the protector of it. The Constitution creates a leader, not a ruler, a servant, not a sovereign, and a president, not a king. If you enjoyed this particular episode, hey, if it helps you understand why the framers insisted on having a single executive, the president, stick around because I'm hanging out for number 71. We'll put it up tomorrow. And on this one, this is where Hamilton takes up the question of the duration of the president's term in office. Thanks for hanging around, and I'll see you on the next one.